Most men earn more than women, all right? And then also, women tend not to be seen and heard, okay? So we really have to do something about this. So I'm going to get started with the core subject that we're supposed to be talking about here today, which is personal branding. I want this class to be interactive. I don't want to be the only one who is talking. Major means of communication is obviously going to be by the chat room. I don't know whether all of us are allowed to unmute our mics. So if we are, and you want to unmute your mic and speak when I ask a question, I don't mind your doing so, but you can also use the chat room to communicate to us. So I want us to start with our first activity today, and then I will go on to teach a little bit about personal branding. I want to ask you a question, and I want you to think about this, and I want you to answer the question honestly. What is your value? And how much are you worth? What is your value? How much are you worth? You can pop it in the chat room, or you can unmute your mic and answer the question. What is your value? If we were to place a price on you right now, what is your value? I love to ask this question because when I ask the question, I always get very interesting responses. So what is your value? And how much do you think you're worth right now? Who would like to start I take one or two answers. What is your value? And how much do you think you're worth? I'm looking at the chat. And I'm also listening out for answers. What is your value? We can't be quiet here. If I had the time, I would have asked everyone to introduce themselves, but we don't have time. So this is the way that we are also going to get to know each other. So what is your value? How much do you think you're worth? Who wants to answer that question? Who's brave enough to answer the question? Knock, knock, knock. Who's brave enough to answer the question?
If anyone wants to talk, you can indicate so that you'll be unmuted.
Yeah, answers are beginning to come in. I love Chinedu. Chinedu says, he or she, I don't know whether you're male or female, I'm priceless. I always get that answer, priceless. You can't put a value on me. All right, anyone else who would like to answer that? One or two more questions. Come on, we've got to be interactive. Remember, we're talking about personal branding, okay? Fantastic. Chioma says, I am priceless too, Ma. I'm very, very priceless. Nobody can value me. Anyone else? Very quickly. Anyone else? I love that. Everybody's saying the same thing. My value can't be priced. I'm invaluable. I'm seeing that come up. Any more answers? We're about 31 people in this room. So, if we're only getting 4 or 5 people answering, then, all right, think about it. How much are you worth? What is your value and how much are you worth? I ask this question everywhere and I love it. I'm getting the same answers. Everywhere I go, whenever I talk about this subject and when I ask this question, I always get these answers. But I'm sad to announce to you, let me tell you something. The truth about life is this. There is a marketplace for skills. There is a marketplace for professional skills. And every day I am in this industry, I'm in the HR industry. I spend a lot of time in recruitment. I spend a lot of time in learning and development. There are 1 or 2 of you who know me here, so you know what it is that I do. Every day we're buying and selling skills. So when people tell me they're invaluable, I know people really don't understand what is happening in the marketplace. Because in the marketplace, there is a premium placed on skills. There is a value placed on skills. We never say anyone is invaluable. We just say, how much is this person worth? All right? So I want to start off with that, letting you understand that first of all, before we go on to talk about other things. All right, so let's talk about branding. This is why it is important to understand what branding is all about, because branding will help us to link to that marketplace. So what is branding? Branding is the perceptions, whether real or imagined, held by people about product, service, or person. And what people don't understand is that these perceptions are usually driven by direct interactions people have with a product, service, or person, or they are driven by the stories that people hear about a person. So that is it, a perception. Perception is what people think about something or someone, all right? It may be real, maybe imagined, okay? And that is what branding is all about. Perception is an idea, it's a belief or an image you have as a result of how you see or understand something. So let me tell you something. time you present yourself to someone, you are within that situation where people are thinking, what is my perception about this person? And people are calculating, what is the true value of this person? What can this person do for me? All right. So perceptions are highly psychological. They're up here in the mind. All right. Now, you cannot talk about branding without talking about reputation. So what is reputation? Reputation is the opinion that people have about somebody or something. And it is based on usually what happened in the past or what is happening in the now. All right. So I want to let you understand something, that your past actions can determine your future outcomes. So now that we understand what branding is, let us look at what personal branding is. Okay. Because we have company branding. What is personal branding and how does it relate to you as a career professional? Now, a personal brand is based on the merits, reputation, and accomplishments of the individual into who they are. Let me warn you about something. It's not about the company you work for. It can help, but it's not about your company. It's not about your title. So just because you are the vice president of so and so place, the MD of so and so place, the senior manager of so and so place, you work in Shell, you work in MTN, you work in some amazing organization, doesn't mean that you necessarily will have a personal brand that is recognized by a large majority of people. In a personal brand, I want you to note the value is placed on the individual's identity and what value they can add to different environments, organizations, or people. Look, it's about the stories that people hear about that person, which links to that individual's reputation. All right, so it's not about you, like I said, being the VP of this or being the VP of that. So I'm going to give you an example. Let's talk. As I said, I want this to be interactive. So I want you to look at these three people. And I want you to look at them and then answer the question. Are these men defined by their careers or by their personal brands? Who wants to answer that question? You can unmute your mic if you're allowed to, or you can put it in the chat room. Are they defined by their careers? Or is it something greater that defines them? Thank you, Okemute. Thank you. Okemute says personal brand. Oyo, please, if I don't pronounce your name properly, says personal brands. I'm seeing Ines says careers. Chioma says careers. All right, so what is the real thing? What is the real thing? Are they defined by their personal brands? Bill Gates started out as the CEO of Microsoft, Microsoft Corporation. He's now the founder of Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. All right. So is it the career? Bill Gates was at the forefront of talking about COVID. Bill Gates gets up and talks and the whole world shakes. He talks about a multiplicity of issues, whether it be IT. He's gone beyond even IT. Once Bill Gates says something, everybody listens. So I ask that question again. Is it about the career or is it about the personal brand? What is it that makes people think about when Bill Gates talks, why is it that people listen to him? So can anyone answer that question? Why do people listen to him? Do they listen to him because of his career in Microsoft Corporation when he talks about social issues? All right. The same thing with Elon Musk, the same thing with Jeff Bezos. All right. We don't have time, but I just want you to start thinking about this. What is it? Is it the career or is it the brand? I'm going to give you another example here. These are four, we know who they are. I try to choose people that everyone would know, all right? You would have to be living under a rock not to know the four personalities who are on this page. We have Tony Alumelu, we have Jim Ovia, we have Segun Abaje, we have Herbert Bigwe. Answer this question honestly. Who has a brand that transcends, all right, the banking industry? Which one of these people tends to have a brand that transcends the banking industry. So who do you think, sir? Who do you think this is? Who wants to try? You can pop it in the stage. I would love it for people, for mics to be unmuted so that we can talk to each other. All right. Nesochi says Tony Elumelu. Chioma says Tony Elumelu. Hashem says all of them. Chinedu says yes. So there's a specific name that keeps on coming out over and over again. People keep on saying Tony Elumelu. Tony Elumelu. One or two people. Buki says all of them. All right. Most of the people here are talking about Tony Elumelu. T-O-E. T-O-E. Meaning that there is something about him that transcends the banking industry. We can think of Tony within the banking industry, but we can also think of him as being larger than that industry, meaning that Tony has become a brand that is larger than life, that transcends the banking industry. All right? So we've got to understand this. This is what we're talking about when we're talking about personal branding. It's a perception. All right. And the personal brand spans the entirety of the following: your professional career, your professional life, how visible you are. And I'm going to talk a little bit about this more as we go on, how visible you are, and your social capital. All right. People think of capital in terms of finances that you have available to invest in a particular venture. But let me tell you something. There is something that is called your social capital, your social wealth, the wealth that you have that can translate into promoting you and helping you to accelerate in your career. All right. Another definition I just want to talk about very quickly is your brand identity. And what are those? The visible elements of a person or organization's identity, which can include your logo, your dress, your color, your visual appearance, your messaging. So what am I saying? Every time you show up, there are things that people are identifying with concerning you, all right? And these things form part of your brand. So back again, I'm going to go back to that picture. A lot of you talked about Tony. What is that defining thing about Tony in terms of identity, in terms of our signature? What is that identifying thing that shows up with Tony anytime you see him? Can anyone pinpoint it? Fantastic. Kamata said, the first thing she thinks about is entrepreneurship. Fantastic. But you know, I'm not just talking about things that he does. I'm talking about his clothing. I'm talking about his logo. I'm talking about things that show up with him anytime he is in an environment. What do you think that is? Does anyone know it? Fantastic. Somebody said a suit and tie, but all the other four wear a suit and tie. There is something very defining. Fantastic. Oviri got it. Oviri said red. Every time Tony shows up, Tony either has a red tie or he has red socks. All right. So it has become part of his identity. And that in turn ties to his personal brand. Now, what is the ultimate aim of having a personal brand? Why do you want to have a brand in the first place? What's the whole, importance of having a brand? It's all about having positive imagery. People want to have, you want to work hard at people having a positive image of who you are. All right? If people have a bad image of you, the truth and the fact of the matter, I don't know. Think about it. Think about people that you give things to, or people that you're willing to help, or people that you're willing to work with. Usually, it is because you have positive feelings about that person. We just recently went through an election, all right? And there were different people who put themselves forward to be elected as president. Many people voted for different people. And what was the reason for that? People had positive feelings about those people and said, you know what? I want to be associated with this person. I want to be part of this person's political history. All right? So this is it. This is what branding is all about. And every time you show up, you're showing up with your personal brand, and you must never, ever forget that. Why is it important to have a personal career brand? What is it? Why do we even need to talk about branding in the first place? Why is it important to talk about having a personal career brand? All right. SPA didn't need to have this session. You know, why did they include it? Why did they want you to understand? Why did they want the engineers in the society to understand that it is important to have a career brand? The truth and the fact of the matter is you are what people think of you. If you like, get all the degrees in the world. And let me tell you something. I love degrees. It's important to get degrees, okay? Get all the degrees from Oxford, from Cambridge, from Harvard, from Stanford, from wherever, all right? But at the end of the day, even with those degrees, if your reputation and your brand is poor, at the end of the day, people are not going to think very highly of you. And that is going to translate into certain things. So let me show you what happens, all right? And why we must have a good brand and why we must understand the concept of branding. Number one, branding makes you very visible. When you have a personal brand, you become more visible to people. And when you are visible, it helps to open doors and it also helps to attract opportunities. The other day, I was working with a very close friend of mine who was saying to me, oh, you know what? I'm thinking about different opportunities. I saw this opportunity. I'm trying to, see if I can apply to this opportunity. Let me see what happens. And I said, oh, you know what? I know somebody within that organization. Let me call that person. Let me ask that person if that person will be able to put your name forward for this position. So I called the person and the person said to me, oh, no problem. If it is this person, how well, she's within the space that she's even applying for. You know what? I'm going to call the recruiter immediately. I'm going to talk to the recruiter and I'm going to let the recruiter know that this CV is here. We can't afford to ignore it. So that's what happens when you have a personal brand. It makes you visible. It helps to open doors and it helps you attract opportunities. So you can't afford to ignore your brand. All right. So what else does branding make you help help you to do? It makes you marketable and it makes you very sellable. Remember the story I just told you? I was able to sell that CV because the person had established a brand. Okay, so branding makes you marketable and it makes you sellable. I have a friend who is a very well-known corporate communications guru. I don't know when last she applied for a job. Her brand has made her extremely visible. And what happens is that whenever the major corporates need to fill a role, she's the first person they go to before they give the job to anybody else. They don't even ask for her CV. What they do is they present the JD to her and they say to her, would you like to take on this role? All right. So branding makes you marketable. It makes you saleable. All right. And then branding also gives you strong control of your life. It projects you as being a reliable and consistent person. And it projects you as somebody who is an asset to the people and the organizations that you work in. And of course, branding ultimately increases your valuation. All right. Remember, I told you there is a marketplace where we buy and sell skills. This thing you say about being invaluable, please take that thing out of your mind. There is nobody who is invaluable. They are just people who have certain amounts of value, which they bring to the organizations in which they work in. All right. So when it comes to careers, please remember that. So what are the causes? All right. So what is the impact of poor branding? What happens to you when you don't have good branding? Your visibility is poor. People don't know who you are. I remember that there was time in my life that I used to complain that nobody calls me for anything. Nobody asks me to come and speak anywhere. What is happening with all my degrees? Blah, blah, blah. I kept on saying that. Then when I did an analysis, I found out people won't call those who they don't know. So you can have all the value, but if that value is not visible to people, people are not going to want to have anything to do with you. All right. So it gives you poor visibility. If you don't have a good brand, you're not visible. Okay. You are not visible. I remember talking about one of the political candidates who was running for elections recently. And I said to someone, oh, you know, so and so is running for the election. And the person I was talking to on the phone said, really? I haven't heard anything about that person. And I understood what the issue was. The person has not got their personal brand out there. It also makes your valuation very low. All right. So at the end of the day, when you put yourself up for work, when there's a job, there are some people who can go and negotiate for a job and tell people, you said that this job was supposed to be meant for a general manager. Sorry, I'm not going to take the general manager position. I insist on an executive director position. I insist on this salary. I insist on this and I insist on that. And people will give that person the job because of that person's brand. It makes you you're not marketable, all right? When you don't have a good brand, it's difficult for you to be marketable. And of course, people don't trust you, all right? People say, are we sure that we can trust this person? Can we give this person this sort of role? Are we sure this person will be able to handle this sort of role? All right? So you've got to really understand this issue of branding. And you've got to pay attention to it and make sure that you work on your personal brand and you build a personal brand that people will inevitably want to be attached to. People will want to have something to do with your brand. People will want you to work in their organization. People will want you to do business with them. All right. So this is why it is important to build that personal brand. All right. So very quickly, what are the types of brands that are out there? Because one of the things that I want you to understand is the fact that there are many different brands. I haven't been able to mention all of them in the next couple of slides that I'm going to talk about, all right? But I want us to do another exercise, all right? Before I start to talk or mention the different types of brands. Look at these two beautiful women. We all know who they are. I try to use personalities that everybody knows. Can you think of at least one adjective that describes each one? Okay, so just say Mo Abudu. Whenever I think of her, this is what I think of her in terms of her brand. Mrs. Folorunsho Alakija, whenever I think of her, this is what I think of her in terms of her brand. Who would like to try? All right, so Fatima says, so who is the media personality? All right, so everybody is saying Mo Abudu Entertainment. Fantastic. Fantastic. Fatima, thank you so much. Nice to see you. Mo Abudu, fantastic. Is a media personality. Who else? Who else wants to try? So thinking about, whenever you think about them, fantastic. Chioma says, businesswoman. Fantastic. Fantastic. Tina says, media personality. Fantastic. This is really interesting. All right. Anyone else? What about Folorunsho? Nobody's taking up Folorunsho Alakija. So we're taking up Mo Abudu. What about Mrs. Alakija? When you think of Mrs. Alakija, she's in the oil and gas industry. So what do you think of? Oh, I love that. Bisola says money. M-O. When I don't see her, I don't think of money. It's money. M-O-N-Y. When you just look at from top to toe, it's money. Okay. Anyone else? Anyone else? Anyone else who wants to try? Folorunsho? Oh, I love that. Tina says richest woman in Africa. All right. So that is it. Money. People are also saying money. Again, Tina is talking about money. Yeah. All right. So the truth is this. You saw that once they showed up, you started to think about these people in terms of their personal brand, okay? So this is it. There are different types. You can see from that little example that we did, there are different types of personal brands. And you've got to be conscious about what type of brand you want to build. When I started to build my brand, I had to really sit down to think about it because, as I told you, I'm a woman who wears many different hats. And I had to say to myself, how do you bring all those hats under one heading? All right. So every time you show up, people have an adjective to describe you, or they have a noun, all right, to name you. So always remember that every time you show up, and you've got to control your narrative. Nobody is going to build your narrative. If you leave it, or let's put it this way, there are two ways of building your personal brand. Okay, there's not enough time for me, given the time that I haven't been able to include ways you can build your personal brand, but I can talk about it very quickly and tell you that there are two ways you can build your personal brand. You can either have someone else build your personal brand and control it, or you can strategically build that brand yourself. You can be the one who controls what people say about you and how people think about you. All right, so let's move on. Let's look at some of the different brands that we have there, and then we'll do another exercise. I wish that the organizers could allow people to unmute their mics so that people have the opportunity to talk. Sometimes when we have that level of interaction, I understand what you're trying to protect here, but once we have that level of interaction, it helps to get people talking. All right, so I'm going to introduce you to the first one. That is the business mogul, all right? The business mogul, the businesswoman. all right? And I put Mo Abudu here. One of the things that I'm going to also explain to you, share with you, is to let you know that you can be a lot of different brands, okay? So you can be a business mogul, and you can also be a media personality. And I'm going to show you another example of a media personality. I have an example of a media brand in these slides, okay? So you can be, but whenever you think of Mo, you think of it, okay, all right, thank you, Chair, thank you so much. Whenever Mo Abudu shows up, it's the businesswoman. She is a businesswoman, all right? And that's who she is. And there are many other women who are like that, but because of time, I couldn't really come up with, people, okay? And then Mrs. Alakija. Yes, people think of her as the money woman, but do you really know that that is not her brand? Mrs. Alakija really is a social crusader. If you look at her life, really, when you look at Mrs. Alakija's life, you find that Mrs. Alakija makes money, really, to go out there and do the things that she loves to do, which is to work with disadvantaged people, to work with widows, to help to train and build women. She's a social crusader. And as I'm beginning to mention all of these different brands, it's time for you to start thinking about what type of brand you want to have, all right? So she is a social crusader. And I have friends, okay, professional colleagues and friends that I know who actually specialize in social impact. That is their work. That is what they studied. That is all they do. So there are people who have that brand. They're just social crusaders. They want to change society. They want to do good for society, all right? Then we have the brand that is known as the influencer. All right. I don't know how many of us know Kylie Jenner. She has over 200 and something million people following her. And I say by the time you put together the number of people who follow the Kardashians, they control a good percentage of the entire world. All right. I say sometimes jokingly to people that there are 200 and something million people in Nigeria, though we're about to do our next population census. So that was the last one, that the last figure that we were given. And this young lady has 300 and something million people, about that, following her. And I jokingly say she has become a nation because she has so many people following her. Who is the influencer? The influencer is the person who is able to influence people with their ideas, with their thoughts. Just one word from an influencer is enough to get everybody thinking the way the influencer is thinking. And if you think I'm joking, let me show you something. A couple of years back, this young lady who is also a multi-billionaire. Sometimes I sit down and I wonder to myself, I say to myself, what do the Kardashians really do? You know, what do the Kardashians and Jenners really do? I don't really understand it. But really, what do? They share their life with people. They share their lives with people. They share the stories of their lives with people. And they share their opulence, their wealth, the stories about their wealth, their success with people. And people want, somehow or the other, to be attached with these kinds of stories. It encourages people, it inspires people. So lots of people go to her page and they look at her page and they look at what it is that she's saying. And Kylie Jenner and her mother, they're just master tacticians. They used her influence, her visibility, her personal brand to build a major cosmetic business. So what happened? They noticed that people were influenced by what she says and what she posts on Instagram. So they launched a makeup line. All she does, she holds up the makeup, shows people how beautiful the makeup makes her look. And the next thing you know, the entire line is sold out. So that is the power of the influencer brand. Okay. That is and we have many of them like that here in Nigeria too as well. All right. And if you're looking for evidence to show how much the influencer can impact society, we're going to talk about this lady again, Kylie Jenner, who a couple of years ago went on, I think it was Instagram or Twitter or something, and she made a comment saying that, you know what, does anyone else open Snapchat anymore? Or is it just me? Ugh, this is so sad. Before you knew it, Snapchat's valuation had fallen by 8.5%. And the stock just crashed just because a young lady who has 300 and something million people following her tweeted, made a comment, and that was it. So I want you to start thinking about your personal brand. We have the career professional, all right? I picked Amy Dadesimi, the managing director of Nadal. You go to her LinkedIn profile, you see this is a woman who is all about careers. Another person that you can think of is Yewande Shadiku, who has built a career in investment banking and pursued that career all throughout her 30-year history in careers. That's all she's done. So it's all about working in a specific career, investing in that career, building yourself in that career, and being known, all right, for being an expert in that career. So it's for you to start thinking. And remember, I said you could be many things. You could be many things. You could be a business mogul. You could be a media personality. You could be an influencer, and you could also be a knowledge expert. There is the knowledge expert personal brand, okay? Where people come to you because you're a knowledge expert, because you are knowledgeable about certain things. All right, I put the picture of my darling cousin here, Tamwa Ashiru, who is a knowledge expert in security. Anytime people want to understand security, they call her, they call Kabiru Adamu, they call people like that to come on board. Tell us what you think about what is going on in the world of security. Okay, and that is a knowledge expert. A knowledge expert has an understanding or expertise about something, and they can teach you and give you knowledge and information about something that helps you to have a better understanding of that thing, or that helps you to improve yourself in that thing. All right, so it's time for you to start thinking, what is your brand? There is the socialite, okay, and I picked DJ Copy. Pairs in many wonderful parties all around the world. But this beautiful woman too has built up a brand by being a socialite, by being in the media, by being so many other things. She has 2 master's degrees. So, I mean, even with her pink hair and all of those things and, you know, her socializing, this is a savvy businesswoman too. She's also a business mogul, all right? So this is the brand she has. Whenever you think about her, you think, oh my God, the socialite, the bright, sparkling socialite. You may also think about other things. You might think of her as being a musician or an entertainer or whatever it is, but this is it. This is what branding does. There is also the brand of the entertainer, okay? We know this guy, 27.5 million people following him on Instagram. I don't even know how many other people are following him on you know, Twitter and any of those other, all right? He is a brand, he's an entertainer who mobilizes a lot of followers, okay? And he has a fantastic global brand. Okay, media brand, that is a media brand. So you can see there's so many different types of brands. So that is the media personality. I've used Oji Okwe as an example of a media personality. She works on Arise TV. She's very well known. Anytime she shows up, she is also an ex-model. Believe it or not, Oji is also an ex-model, but now she is at the frontier of the media personality brand. So the question is, having shared these brands identity types with you, I want you to tell me, do you have a personal brand? I've shared these brand identity types with you. I've introduced you to the concept of branding, what it is, a perception about people's reputation. It's a perception that people have when they interact with you. Do you have a personal brand? And then how would you describe it? Would anyone want to talk? Or, and then you can also say, Emma, I don't have a personal brand. I never realized that this was important. All I thought that I was supposed to do was to show up at work, do my work, and go home. And that's it. So who would like to answer the question? Either in the chat room, though I would love to hear the voices of the beautiful people who are here. Do you have a personal brand? And then how would you describe that personal brand? Very quickly because of time. Do you have a personal brand, and how would you describe that brand? Who would like to go? Do you have a personal brand? Think about it. Do you have a personal brand? And how would you describe that brand? Fantastic. Oludemi says, I think I'm a social crusader. Oludemi, why do you think so? All right, so let's talk. Why do you think that you're a social crusader? Who else wants to unmute their mic? All right. Oh, Nesochi says, I don't have a personal brand yet. Chioma says, I don't have a personal brand, but if I did, it would be the career professional. Pemute says, I didn't think it was necessary. I love that until now. Let me tell you, your personal brand can make the difference between you getting a salary that is up here and a salary that is down here. It's as simple as that. Your personal brand can make a difference between you getting a board level role and you getting a role that is lower than that. Because people say, oh, you know what? I want this person. This person will add value to my organization. Fantastic. Willie says, I'm a content creator. Fantastic. Excellent. All right. We all need to start thinking about our personal brand. I had to do that. I told you there was a time when nobody was calling me to anything. And I was wondering, what in the world is going on? Is it that I'm not good? Is it that I don't have any value? And then I discovered that it wasn't because of that. It was because I wasn't putting myself out there. I wasn't making myself visible, and I wasn't letting people know what it is that I do and how it is that I can help people. The minute I started to do that, fantastic. I'm seeing people say, I think I'm a career professional, a mentor for young women and teens. When people see me, they remember they've not drank water. All right, so you know what? I'm telling you something. Once I started to pay attention to my personal brand, and I started paying attention to making myself visible, to promoting what it is that I do, to ensuring that people had an understanding of how it was that I can impact and affect their lives, trust me, things started to change, all right? Things started to change. People started calling me to things, all right? I talk to people now and I say, I call people and I, talk to them about business. And I say, oh, I would like to find out if I can do X, Y, and Z. And one of the things that I'm noticing, and this has increased tremendously. I've been doing business now for over 20 years, but I've noticed a difference between the business, the way that I'm able to put myself forward for business now and previously. Since I started to focus on my personal brand, I'm beginning to notice that people, it doesn't take long for me to say, look, can I do this? Because people know my brand. People know what I can deliver. People know what it is that I can do for them. You understand? And it is because I consciously, it is a strategy for me. Let me be very honest with you, and I must share that with you. But don't think that you can just get up in the morning and go out there and say, oh, I have a personal brand. You know my personal brand. This is what it is. You've got to be strategic about it. It is something that you've got to intentionally sit down and think about creating. All right? Remember, I said there are two ways that your brand can be created. It's either people create your brand for you and you leave them to talk to people about what your brand is all about, or you talk to people about what your brand is all about. So it's something that you have to be very strategic about. Something that it took me weeks to sit down and I wrote up a position paper on it and said, you know what? This is the way that I want my brand to go. This is the way that I want to present my brand. And this is how I'm going to promote myself. And I do it. Okay? So it is something that you've got to do. If not, you're not going to get anywhere. All right. Somebody said, Funke says, what if you get caught between the influencer and knowledge expert? Remember what I said, Funke? You don't have to have only one brand. You can be an influencer and then you can be a knowledge expert. I know many people who are knowledge experts, but they're not influencers. But I also know people who are influencers who are also knowledge experts. All right, there's a person like that in the human resources industry. His name is Yemi Fashion. You need to go and look at his profile on LinkedIn. Yemi is an influencer, but he's also a knowledge expert. All right, so Yemi has a lot of people whose lives that he affects, whose lives he influences. Okay, Yemi also shares knowledge. Yemi is sharing knowledge. He has something that he does every Monday on LinkedIn, and a lot of us who are in the HR profession flock to his page every Monday because we want to read what Yemi is saying. All right, so you can be an influencer. There's nothing wrong. An influencer does not mean that you have to be a Kylie Jenner. All right, an influencer just means you are somebody who has the capacity to influence people with your ideas, to change the mindsets of people, to change the way that people think about something. So if you're going to use your knowledge expertise to influence people, there's nothing wrong with that. Okay, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Okay, so you could be 2 or 3 things. There's nothing wrong with that. All right, Chema asked the question. I'll just read it out. And, because I want this to be interactive, I'm not going to wait for the end of this session to answer the questions. I'm just going to tackle them right now. So Chema asked a question. She said, in situations where one person has improved herself in different areas, and you have several sources of income to build, how do you create a personal brand that is specific? How do you sum it up to that one thing people would know you for? Okay, excellent. Chioma, you're answering my own question. That was the problem that I had. Remember when I introduced myself to you, I said to you that I am a lawyer. I am a teacher of English. I'm also a human resource professional. I'm a leadership developer. I am a career development professional. And a lot of people don't know it. I also do fashion. I'm a very creative person. I do fashion. I write music. And one of the things that I found out was that, and at one time, I tell you something, Chioma, it was chaos for me because everything was clashing. I didn't know what, in the morning, I'll wake up, tell my mother, you know what, today I want to do fashion designing. Tomorrow, I will say I want to do this. The day after tomorrow, I said I was a total mess. Okay. But one of the things that I found out after studying, a branding, intensively, studying people behavior and all of that, is that there's always one platform on which, everything else will stand. And I found my platform. I found out that once that platform is working, all the other things that I do, easily fall from, derive from this platform. Okay. So what am I saying? You've got to find that one thing that holds everything together like glue. And once you found that one thing, you will find that everything else that you're doing will key in. All right. So I'm not that confused anymore. I kind of know what I'm doing. I know when I'm supposed to be doing things. I know when each of my gifts and my calling, are supposed to be used. I know how to project my brand. And I know how to project my brand in a way that it takes into consideration all the different aspects of me. All right. So I hope that helped to answer that question. So let's push on because of time. Remember, I said this is something that I'm trying to squeeze, so many classes that I'm trying to squeeze into one, but I hope that you are deriving some benefit from listening to what it is that I've talked about so far. So let's talk about the aspects of your personal brand, the different things that come together. Because if we just leave it at the definition of what a personal brand is and say, oh, this is what a personal brand is. Personal brand is something that is a perception that people have about you. And, when they interact with you, these are the thoughts they have about you. Personal branding is all about storytelling. The stories that people either tell about you or you tell about yourself. No, I want to also tell you something. There are aspects of your personal brand that must reflect, in you anytime that people come into contact with who you are. All right. So let's quickly talk about those aspects. All of this is a class on your own. Some of you, I recognize some of the names who are here. You've attended some of my classes. You know that some of the things I'm going to talk about, each one, I can spend 2 hours talking about that particular thing. All right. So 4 key things make up your personal brand. All right. Especially, these are the 4 things. There are others, but you can factorize everything into 4 key things. Number 1, your professional career. And this is where a lot of people miss it, as people do not plan their careers properly. They don't plan their careers properly. They don't manage their careers properly. They don't invest in their careers properly. In fact, what I just like to say is this: a lot of people career-wise don't know where they're coming from. They don't know where they're going from. So what is your professional career? You need to sit down and ask yourself that question. What type of career are you pursuing? Are you going to be in a career where you're going to be in paid work? All right. And you have what I call a status career. Are you going to be that sort of person into entrepreneurship? Are you that sort of person who's going to pursue a lifestyle in the social impact world? What is your professional career? And how are you going to plan that professional career so that you advance and progress and grow in that career? All right. So that's number 1. When you're thinking about your personal brand, think about your professional career and how that is going to be managed and how that is going to be projected to the world. Think about your personal life. People think, oh my goodness, my personal life has nothing to do with my professional career. But I'm going to show you an example of that, okay? That your personal life has a lot to do. There's a gentleman who was just jailed in America. I'm still trying to study the case. I'm still trying to figure out what the whole case is all about. But he murdered, apparently, well, he's been convicted now. So I can say he murdered his wife and murdered his child, okay? Fantastic lawyer from a wealthy family, had an amazing professional career, until his personal life collided with his professional career, and now he's been jailed, and he's going to spend the rest of his life in jail. He's going to live his life in ignominy, and he's just going to that's the end of his life, all right? Unless something comes up to prove. I mean, the other day, somebody was freed after being in prison for 38 years because they found out that the trial was done wrongly, okay? So his entire professional career is dead, all right? There is also the issue of visibility, and I'm going to speak briefly on this too as well, all right? That this is part of your personal brand. Have the best professional career. Be the best at what you do. Don't be visible. You'll find out you're not going anywhere. And then, of course, social capital, all right? So let's quickly talk about your professional brand. I can't talk about everything, all right? Because of time, I'm rushing, as you can see, to try to get through this on time. But let's just talk about it. Career planning. How do you plan? Do you even plan your career at all? Or every morning you just wake up and you just decide that you're going to live your career any which way you want to live it? Have you thoughtfully sat down to plan your career such that you know in 6 months what it is that you want to exactly be doing in your career? Have you sat down to deliberately plan your career such that you know where you want to be in 2 years' time? What is your career plan? And then what is the career strategy that you have designed to support that career plan? People just think that you wake up in the morning and then you just move from seat to seat, from point to point, and that you just accelerate like that in your life, that, the angels are going to come around and flutter around you, pour angel dust all over you, and you're just going to get your promotions just like that. It doesn't happen. Life is about strategy. Think of your life as being like on a chessboard, and how you're moving the pieces of the chessboard around to favor you. All right. So you must have a strategy for your career. And you must have. If you don't have a strategy for your career, you're going to find out that you're going to spend 30 years working in a career. And at the end of that, don't worry, I'm coming to the charts. I will look at the comments in the chat. At the end of 30 years, you will end up just being one of the most unhappy people in the world. Okay. So you must have a career strategy. And then you must invest in yourself at a professional and personal level. You must invest, get the degrees. I always say I love degrees, all right? Or get the professional qualifications. And then don't stop there. Develop yourself at a personal level, attend courses, read books, do whatever it is that you're going to have to do to expand in your profession. These things come together to enhance your professional brand. And then lastly, your thought leadership. It is something that a lot of people forget. This is the core of your personal brand, because and this is what tends to make people visible, because you can have all the other three, but if you do not harness your thought leadership identity, I tell you, your professional brand will suffer a little bit. So let's talk a little bit about the thought leadership strategy. But before I do that, I will just check a few. Yes, I love that. Chinaya said, life is about strategy. Honestly, Chinaya couldn't have been, couldn't have said it better. It's about strategy. If you don't have a strategy, if you don't have a plan, you're just going to be living and drifting around like that and just moving from one point to the other. This year, for instance, I know what it is that I'm going to be doing with regard to my businesses, okay? And I can constantly repeat it to myself, and I have said it. I'm giving it a name. And I say, Project XYZ, this is what I'm going to be doing this year. And I am following that project because that is the strategy that I have decided to use this year to be able to expand myself, expand my businesses, and expand my career. And it is working because I've sat down to think about it and to design it and to study and to understand how it will affect me and how it will promote me. So let's talk quickly about the thought leadership identity. A lot of people don't talk about this. Who is a thought leader? All right. What is thought leadership strategy all about? It is the expression of thoughts and ideas that show you have expertise in a specific field or subject. So it's the expression of expertise. And a good thought leader is able to influence and inspire his or her audience by providing content that is useful to their advancement. All right. So that is it. That is who a thought leader is all about. And really, when we're talking about thought leadership, we're also going into the arena of content management, how you manage the content that you develop, all right, that you use to project your overall personal brand. Okay, so you need to start thinking about that. What are you known for? Are you an expert in? Are you an expert in entertainment? Ask that question already. Are you an expert career? person? Are you an expert knowledge practitioner? Are you an expert business person? What is your expertise in? And do people know about that expertise? For example, if people want information, sometimes I'm working, honestly speaking, and I've said to myself, I've got to bring some control to this, because sometimes I'm working and then my day just gets interjected by people who come to me to say, Emma, I want to make this move in my career. Emma, I'm about to be considered for promotion in a leadership role. Emma, I need some information about how to present myself and to project myself better. And then I find that I have to sit down and say, because sometimes these things come in from very close friends. So I have to stop what I'm doing. I don't joke with my friends. I've spent over how many years investing in friendships that I don't want to die. So as soon as I know it's coming in from a friend, I'm stopping what I'm doing and I'm looking at what it is they're saying. And I'm saying, okay, you've got to move like this and you've got to move like that and you've got to move like that. And I started to say to myself, obviously, Emma, you've become a thought leader in this area. People understand that you have expertise in this area. So people come to you to ask you questions about this area. And I tell you something, your thought leadership can earn you money. It earns me money anyway, all right? Your personal brand can earn you money. Because at the end of the day, why do we want a personal brand? We want a personal brand because we want people to think positively about us. But why do we want people to think positively about us? We want people to think positively about us because at the end of the day, we want a reward. Please don't ever get into that situation where you do something for the sake of doing it because you just want to be popular. No, the popularity must translate into something, a definable reward that is going to benefit you at the end of the day. All right, so that is thought leadership. And a thought leader understands the art of storytelling, telling stories about their expertise and what it is that they know. All right. And storytelling, sometimes some people are naturally natural born storytellers. I'm a daughter of a writer. I believe that my father was a natural born storyteller. All right. But I'll tell you something, at the heart of it too, storytelling is something that you learn. You can learn to tell stories about yourself. All right. So it's not enough, what am I saying, to be an expert. You've also got to ask yourself, how am I going to tell the story about this expertise? How are people going to know about my expertise? How are people going to know about my brand and what it is that I do? And remember, I will keep repeating this over and over again. You either leave people to tell stories about you, or you craft your own stories and you narrate them the way you want them to narrate. So you've got to ask yourself, when you're talking about stories, I can't go into too much of it now. So I'm just going to touch on a few things. All right. You've got to ask yourself that question. What type of stories do you want to tell? Do you want to instruct people? Do you want to motivate people? Do you want to direct people? Do you want to develop people? Do you want to give people information? All right. So that is it. What type of storytelling, what type of expertise do you want to develop? And how do you want to promote that expertise? Now, you cannot be a thought leader. You cannot develop a personal brand without asking yourself, who are the people who are going to follow me because of this personal brand? So you need to ask yourself that question. I'd like to hear from you. Do you have followers? Is there any of you here who can say, I have followers? I have people who are following me. They're following me every day. I have 10 people following me. I have 20 people following me. I have people who rely on me. I have people who depend on me. I have people who are seeking me out, following my brand because of information that they're getting from me. Is there anyone here? Do you have a follower strategy? Have you developed a followership strategy? I have people following me. I can see one of those two people who follow me on a regular basis in this room too as well. They follow me. And not because I'm extremely fantastic, but they follow me because they know there's certain types of information they're looking for in their lives, and they know that they're going to get that information from me. So you have to also have it's a critical aspect of building your personal brand, building your followership strategy, because your followers are your disciples. Your followers are the people who will promote your brand. You can't do everything by yourself. You're telling your stories, but there are other people who have to tell those stories on your behalf. All right. Remember that I also told you that your personal life, I'm told that I have only about 5 minutes. I'll try and round up as quickly as possible. Your personal life can also have an impact on your personal brand. Okay. Your personal life can have an impact on your personal brand. Don't have too much time to talk about that because I've been told to hurry up, and I want to go on to other things. Your visibility has an impact on your personal brand. All right? How visible you are. Are people seeing you? And are the right people seeing you? When it comes to career advancement, when it comes to personal branding, it's not enough to build a personal brand. You've got to make sure that that personal brand is visible to the people who can help to advance your life, who can reward you, who can give you the things that it is that you're looking for in your life. And visibility is about positioning, being in the right place at the right time. Visibility is about presence, projecting yourself so that people, they sense your aura when you walk into a place. Visibility is also about how you appear and where you appear. All right? These are strategic things. A lot of time, sometimes I get invitations and I say to myself, I ask myself when I get the invitation, should I accept the invitation? Should I not accept the invitation? And what I'm thinking about is, what I have at the back of my mind is that if I accept this invitation, is it going to promote my brand? That's what I'm thinking about. All right. So there's some places where people invite me to, I don't go because I say to myself, what's the whole essence of going? If I go, is it going to benefit me? Is it going to benefit my brand in any way? So it's not everywhere you want to position yourself. It's not everywhere you want to be seen in. All right. And the truth is that when it comes to visibility, many women don't understand that it's not enough to be good at what you do. You also have to be sure you are visible to those who need to see you and reward you for those things that you're good at. And this also applies to men, because I know that we have men in this August meeting. All right, so social capital. Do not forget social capital. I don't have enough time to talk about social capital, but briefly, what do I want you to know? Because this is part of your personal brand. Remember, I talked about it earlier on. The capital is not only relating to money, all right? There's also the issue of social capital, the resources you have, the information you are getting that can help to push you forward, the networks that you are in. Thank God for the SPE. This is a fantastic network that helps to promote engineers, okay? So your social networks, your developmental networks. Do you have mentors? Do you have sponsors? Do you have coaches? People who will work with you to promote your brand. These are things that people do not think about often when it comes to building their personal brand and when it comes to advancing themselves in their careers. All right, lastly, and I'll try to round this off as quickly as possible in 2 minutes, barriers to building personal brands. You've got to be aware of this. We talked about the personal brand. I don't have enough time, and that's why I didn't include that, to talk about how to build it. All right, maybe at another time, SP could pull me back. We need to talk about that, how to be strategic about building your brand. But for now, let me just talk about some of the barriers to building your personal brand. Number one, there are many barriers, but I've just chosen 2 because this one keeps on coming up: the imposter syndrome and ignorance. All right? And ignorance. So what is imposter syndrome all about? An imposter, somebody who suffers from imposter syndrome is someone who feels that, you know what, I don't deserve what it is that I've gotten. So because I don't even deserve it, I don't deserve to promote myself. Let me just sit in one corner and just forget my life. Okay, do my work. All right. Then there is the issue of ignorance. And ignorance has to do, remember I talked about social capital. Okay, can you mute your mic, please? Thank you. All right, so ignorance has to do with not having enough information about what you need to do to push yourself forward. All right. So that is it. You feel you are an imposter. You feel you don't deserve the things that you're getting. All right. And there are many things that contribute to imposter syndrome. There's psychological factors, there are behavioral factors. All right. There's the issue that has to do with family background, where you are coming from. Cultural factors, you come from a society where you are told this is the way things have to be done. Religious factors, peer group interactions, you grew up with people who told you you were ugly, you were fat, you were this, you were that, you don't deserve to this, you're not really that bright or intelligent. These are things that can be barriers, all right, and can contribute to you having imposter syndrome. So some quick tips to help you to overcome them. You've got to know your value. You've got to know your value. You've got to know what you bring to the table. You've got to understand that you deserve to be successful, that you deserve to be happy, you deserve to be fulfilled. You've got to stop trying to be perfect. One of the things that ruins most of us, especially women, we always want to be perfect. I'd like to announce to you that nobody was born perfect, and I don't think that anybody can ever be perfect. What you can strive to do is just to be as good as possible at what you do, but don't strive to be so perfect that when you make a mistake, it becomes a problem. Stop comparing yourself to other people. I don't. I'm me, I'm Emma, I'm myself, and I compare myself to myself. Know what makes you different. Control, remember what I keep on saying, control your narrative, okay? Seek knowledge so you're not an ignorant person. The fact that you're here shows that you're not an ignorant person. You don't want to wallow in ignorance. Step out of your comfort zone. Make new connections, all right? And join new networks and avoid being a very stagnant person. Step out of the confines of your upbringing. Identify the social cultural barriers that are holding you back and break their hold over your life. Free yourself from limiting relationships. Associate yourself with the right people. Sometimes just being in the right company can make a difference to your life. I am very careful about who I hang around with. I just don't hang around with anybody. If I'm in an environment where people are bringing me down, casting aspersions on me, there is no way I am going to continue to be in that environment. I choose my friends very carefully, and I nurture my relationships with my friends very carefully. Move away from negative people. You do not want to be around people who are always castigating you. And then, of course, identify your support groups. Build new skills, all right? Learn and unlearn. Know where you have gaps and try and close those gaps. Upgrade yourselves constantly, invest in yourself, and constantly analyze how well you are doing. All right, just want to leave you with a note to yourself. I'm sorry that I have to hurry, but as I said, this is this is a 5 masterclass that I have tried to squeeze into 2 hours, okay? I just want you to make this note to yourself as I round off and step away from this and allow the facilitators to take over the conversation. Note to yourself, I want women to understand something. The fight for gender parity is frontal, it's personal, okay? Nobody's going to fight for you. I wrote that on my LinkedIn page today, and I thought that I would bring that in. Nobody is going to fight for you, as if you don't show up, you're going to be forgotten, and you're going to be left behind. And one of the ways, of course, that you show up is through your personal brand. So if you want to engage further with me, you want to learn a little bit more about this topic and other topics that you feel that I can help you with, you can take a screenshot of that page. Those are my contact details. I'm very active on LinkedIn. I'm also on Instagram. I've got a web page, so you can also go there and see what it is that I do. You can book a free 30-minute call with me too as well. I should be opening up my space for that very soon. You can also book a free 30-minute call, and you can have that chat with me, and we can engage further. So I'd like to thank the SBE for inviting me to make this presentation. It has been and indeed, it has indeed been a very wonderful session. I've enjoyed engaging with you. And at this point in time, I would like to hand the session back to the facilitators. And if there are any questions, I'm available to take them.
Fantastic, Emma. Fantastic. Please, let's celebrate her. We can use the chat box. This is fantastic. Thank you so much. In fact, I was taking notes and I ran out of notes. I ran out of papers. You called it personal branding. I'll call it life hacks. You've said so many things. You've said so many things that can actually take someone from ground zero to 100. Like everything that one needs. So I think it's beyond. This is actually beyond life personal branding. It's about it's like I said, life hacks. What can make you really excel in everything or anything you choose to do. Please, let's celebrate her. This is really, really fantastic. Does anyone have any question? I don't know how much time we still have left. Yeah, learned so much. Does anyone have any question? So there are some of the
Yes,
things that,
sorry.
oh, okay, please. Yeah, go ahead.
I have a question which I had put up earlier on. Thank you so much, Emma, for this session. Quite an amazing one. And I knew it was just going to be as engaging as it has been. Okay, so my question is, how then can a person quantify his or her value or her worth? I know that was the first question you asked us, and then quite a number of us said invaluable, inestimable, and all the likes. So I just want to know, at the end of the day, in what terms do we then quantify as our value?
Okay, so I'm going to go
Thank
back
you.
to what I said earlier on. Thank you so much for your question. I think it's an amazing question. I'm going to go back to what I said earlier on about the marketplace. There is a marketplace. Don't forget that. There's a marketplace for skills. And the marketplace is divided into 3 tiers. There's a local market space, there's a regional market space, and there's a global market space.
Okay.
And that makes the difference between whether you're, say, senior director in Nigeria, senior director of the sub-Saharan or MEA region, or something like that, or you're senior director global, which means you're controlling all the divisions in the whole world. Now, for each profession, there is a pay scale, whether we like it or not. There is what people want to pay, all right? And there's what you call like a pay level. And at the end of the day, you can average everything out and say, when you look at the totality, let me take the oil and gas industry, for instance. When you look at the totality of the oil and gas industry, for this particular role, I'll take, for instance, Senior Director, Human Resources Management for Nigeria in an IOC, for instance. I'm just using that as an example. This is what this is what the IOCs generally pay. So you've got to put yourself within that context. I just use that as an example. You know where it is, you know what your area of specialization is. And this also works for the entrepreneurs. It's not just for the people who are working in paid employment. You've also got to look at your where you fit in the global entrepreneurship space. But I'm just using the career professional space as an example. All right. So within that space, what is your value? What have you brought to the table that will make people say, we want you and we're willing to pay this much for this person? I was talking, to give you an example very quickly, and I'll round up. I was talking to a friend of mine. Yes, that same friend I told you about earlier on, who I was making a recommendation on. And we're talking about what she's worth. And she gave me a figure. And I said, no way, that's not your value. You're way below. I told her, you're $50,000 way below your value. And I said, that $50,000 is your minimum. The additional $50,000 I'm adding to it is your minimum base rate. She was surprised. And I said, yes, because I gave her the thing. I said, this is your background. This is who you are. This is what you've achieved. This is the level you have you've reached.
Okay.
She's one of those people who can turn anywhere. She can be a finance person. She can be this, she can be that, she can be this. I said, you are nothing less than this value. Funny enough, when she spoke to the person I handed her over to, the person said the same thing. That's the value of the marketplace. That's marketplace analysis. We're doing that all the time. We're saying, is this person what this is? This person. There's some people who just say, take this 15 million naira per annum, because what's your market? We haven't brought anything to. It's true.
Wow, thank you so much. Thank you. I'll definitely be connecting with you after now. Thank you.
Indeed. And there are certain things, Emma, you said that actually stood out. One of it is controlling our narratives. Do we want people to tell our stories? Do we want people to control our narratives, or do we want to control our narratives? That's very powerful, I tell you. And also that we need to be strategic, because everything in this life is all about strategy. Rather than just moving from day to day without any strategy, we really need to be strategic. Those are very good nuggets. Thank you so much. Thank you. This has really been very, very fantastic. Magdalene, I don't know how much time do we have left?
I think we've got about 4 minutes more to go back to going by the program schedule. We have about 4 minutes more to return back to the main room. I'll just check and revert back.
Yeah, exactly. You are
Okay.
correct. 4 minutes.
Okay.
Oh,
Fantastic.
okay. Okay, fantastic. So one of the things that Emma talked about again that, you know, I also want to highlight here is for its mentorship. I think a lot of times women, we really don't take this very, very seriously. And it goes a very long way in enhancing one's career or one's brand. So mentorship is something very critical as well. Thank you so much, Emma. In fact, like I said, I've learned so much. And of course, I'm going to copy this and I'm going to start following you as well. Thank you for the knowledge that you've shared today is very much appreciated. Thank you so much.
Let me just say something again about controlling your narrative. It is extremely important to control your narrative. I mean, I was on a platform the other day where somebody slandered, well, I would say it was defamation. I'm a lawyer, so I know what it means, okay? And the person defamed me, all right? It was a libelous statement that the person made, questioning my legal qualifications. I showed them that I had to control that narrative. Okay, because the way it was, people were picking up that particular statement and they were picking it up and circulating it and making it seem like as if this was really the truth about me. I made a statement about something in law and the person responded, if you were really a lawyer, you would know XYZ. Oh,
Wow.
by the time that I finished with that particular situation, they not only knew that I was a lawyer, but they know now, be careful. You understand what I'm saying? So you
can you mention what you did if you have the time?
Oh, you don't want to know. I just don't. I'm trained. I went to law school for 5 years. Okay. So I mean, I studied law for 5 years. And even though I don't practice it full time, I still have an understanding of what it is that you're supposed to do as a lawyer. All right. So by the time I finished, I'm telling you, people, you know, if we hadn't done if people hadn't quickly reached out and certain things would have happened that, you know, all right. So I control the narrative, okay, and let people know that, and even when I responded, I said, I am a lawyer. So I did go to school, university, I went to law school, and I got those degrees, okay? So you have to control your narrative. Don't let people slander you. Don't let people libel you. Don't let people tell stories that you don't want them to tell about you. And if they tell a story about you that does not correspond with who you know you are, you better get your story out there as fast as possible. Why do you think so many wealthy people pay to have people who manage public relations and their strategic communication?
So just the final one, I was just thinking about it. So we have a lot of platforms that we can use for visibility, right? We have the LinkedIn, the likes of the LinkedIn for professionals, the Instagram for influencers, and Facebook, if you want, for people that, you know, have a lot of stories to tell. In a professional workplace, what can you do differently? So without using those platforms, or what can you do differently to increase your visibility?
In the workplace, within the workplace itself?
Yes.
It's very easy. You know, I have a friend who controls about 80 something. She controls, I don't know how many countries she controls in the MEA region of a major corporate organization. And when she sat down, I asked her, what is the secret to your success?
1 minute more.
Sat down to talk to me about the secrets of her success, what she said to me is that, Emma, I always made myself available in the office. Whenever things needed to get done that were even outside my scope of work, I made sure I volunteered myself. And I said, look, you know what? This is really not within my portfolio, but I understand that if I do this work, it will promote me, it will give me visibility, it will bring me closer to the board and to the people who really matter. So you know what? She would tell me that anytime there was an opportunity to promote herself in this or to volunteer herself and put herself forward for these things, these types of things, she would put herself forward for these types of things. Also, own your work. Own your work and toot your horn. Don't wait for somebody else don't let somebody else steal your work and steal your, your achievements. Own your work. All right, you can promote yourself in the company newsletter, the company blog, if you have company Slack or something like that, toot your horn and let people know your achievements and what it is that I always say to people, when it comes to your career, that's the only place where you can boast and nobody is going to call you arrogant or proud. Okay, you must toot your horn. Okay.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. I think we must have run out of time now.
Exactly.
Basil.
Yes, ma.
Thank you, Emma. So we need to start going back to the main room, right?
Yes,
Thank
yes,
you.
ma'am.
Thank you for inviting me once again.
Thank you
Thank you
very
so
much,
much,
Madam
Emma.
Emma. We appreciate you.
Thank you so much. Wow.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So we can return back to the main room now. Thanks.
Yes, we can
all-
start going. We can start
Thanks,
leaving
All
now.
participants can
Yeah.
leave and go back to the main room. for
Yeah.
wrap up.
So I'm leaving now.
Okay, ma'am.
Same here. Ensure you're not leaving.